Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, and welcome to the 14th, 15th, or 16th Leader Post Rider Rumblings video podcast. That was the Leader Post Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Clyde Brock-Mononov. Remember Clyde Brock?
Someone's been.
I do, sadly. I'm old enough.
Someone's been on Google this morning.
No, I thought of Clyde Brock this morning. Brock-Mononov is... I think he was a rock musician. Sorry. I've already ruined this podcast. Today it's brought to you by the letter M, by the way. Behind the desk producing this, we have Mark Melnichuk. To my right is Murray McCormick, and this is Costa Maragos.
Hi.
The legendary Costa Maragos. Tikanis.
Kalam Yaharasi.
Uh-oh. Now I'm in trouble.
Rob likes to throw the odd Greek phrase out there. That's in honor of your wife, Chrysoula, of course.
Yes, my Greek is rather limited.
So is Chrysoula with you?
Yeah, she's settled. Laluthia is flowers,
Yes.
and a Pharisto, and there's I think that's my Greek for the day.
Tikanis, how are you? Pospaios Zakolaros.
Oh,
How's Zakolaros doing? The quarterback for the Rough Riders, who happens to be Greek. So there's a bit of a Greek theme aside from the M theme going on here in Rider Rumblings today.
Well, that's a great,
Hey?
way to segue into our discussion about the Rough Riders. I accidentally brought us to football. Actually, Costa saved the day.
Okay.
I think there's a pretty good correlation between the Rough Riders' improvement and the return of Zach Collaros to the roster. The offense hasn't been lights out, obviously, but I think there's been some stability at the quarterback position, and that helps. Costa, I'll start with you. What's your read on the situation?
Well, Zach
as far
does,
as Collaros.
I brought him up because he does have Greek roots. He comes from a Greek family. Me being Greek, so I think I'm really happy to see that. It's nice. It's no coincidence, really, from a fan's point of view, that when there is stability at the quarterback's position, the team tends to win. And this is for pretty well any CFL team. There are exceptions to that, of course. But when is the last time the Riders have consistently won some games? It's when Darian Durant was playing injury-free. And the moment he suffered his first major injury, was that in 2014?
Yeah.
Has the team
tangible.
been the same since offensively? It's really been kind of bland watching that offense since then. There have been exceptions, of course. So in saying that, I think with the last two wins with Zach Collaros quarterbacking, as underwhelming as the Rider offense has been, I sense for the first time in a while just a slight buzz in the city about the Rough Riders. It's not just about going to the new stadium. It's about going to see the Riders win. And I haven't sensed that since, that post-2013 hangover, where actually there was still a buzz in the town because the team was still winning until Durant went down. So it's just nice to feel that again, because I think it does, in a way, bring us together as a community, especially leading into the Labor Day game.
Yeah, I get the feeling that it's... I think there's been a bit of a hesitancy, at least in the part of some constituents of the Rider Nation, to embrace this regime. And there have been some unpopular moves, necessary moves in many cases, but nonetheless unpopular. And people, I don't think, have really run toward the bandwagon, but you can see it building now. And should they beat Winnipeg on Sunday, that's always something people are going to get excited about. Suddenly it's a 3-game winning streak. They're in sole possession of third place in the West. I think it's a pretty good sign that things are moving in the right direction. I just sense that it's on the precipice of really becoming a phenomenon again. Murr?
Hi, how's it going?
Have you met Costa?
Hi, Costa. Yeah, good.
We're going to ostracize you for the remainder
Thanks
of the
for
podcast.
including me in this conversation.
Of course.
We've got 10 seconds.
I'm just going to take a little bit of a tangent off
Sure.
that. And I'm going to talk about the first half on Saturday night in BC. That might be one of the most entertaining first halves of football we've seen the Riders play in a long time. In the BC Lions, back and forth, big plays, small plays, mistakes, miscues. And then we got into the second half, which was a very big reminder of why people aren't jumping on the bandwagon, because the Riders couldn't generate much offense and it wasn't really that exciting. But I kind of disagree with you guys a little bit about the bandwagon jumping, because I think it's been there. I think this season there was high expectations going into this season, and they had that Saturday where they cut everybody and it kind of regressed a little bit. But I think there was high expectations this season. I think people are ready to go on the bandwagon. I think they are on the bandwagon right now, and I just think now that Labor Day you're here, it is going to be a big deal. It is going to be that big thing. So I hate to disagree with two learned observers like you a little bit, but I think I hear about the Riders all the time. I went to golf on the weekend, and no one asked me about how Brooke Henderson's doing. They were asking me about the Riders win, so that's kind of the life. But I think the buzz is there. I think it's going to get a crescendo this weekend because I'm really looking forward to a Labor Day game that has some meaning with the teams with close records and stuff like that.
Well, people are, I think, are looking for that breakthrough, though, with this regime. Last season was definitely a year of progress. They went 10-8. They won a playoff game. They were one defensive stop away from going to the Grey Cup, and that built the expectations to which Murray alluded. And this season, starting out as they did, it seemed like those expectations weren't even remotely close to being met. Now it's getting to the point where I think the team is on the verge of adhering to the expectation level that was silently set out.
I wonder what the expectations were really. I mean, my expectations first, I'll tell you what they were not. Finishing first. Questionable.
That never happens.
It doesn't happen too often, right? It hasn't in many, yes, it's been a long time. So what were my expectations? I thought third with the hope of a home playoff game. The hope. I wasn't saying this is a slam dunk second place team. I just didn't buy into that, to be honest. I just never thought that right from the get-go. And part of it is wondering what's going to happen in the quarterback position, because I wasn't sure how Zach Collaros would do. And I think he has a measure of control of that offense. He seems to stabilize things since his return, but it's still not that lights-out offense. So I just not sure. I wasn't sure he had the guns around him to produce a kind of offense, and it's been proven this year so far. But so I don't know. I didn't have high expectations, but I didn't have really low expectations. It was that I hate to go back to the Barrett years, the 9 and 9 years, which is kind of depressing thinking about that. But I was hoping, again, a 10-8 would be really sweet, and a home playoff game would be a huge bonus, and that's what I'm hoping for still. So we'll see. And
it looked after they lost in Edmonton that
it looked pretty
bleak, but now they win this weekend. I mean, they're already in the conversation again.
Yes.
They win this weekend. They go into Winnipeg and win. Then their schedule gets... Is it schedule or schedule? Anyway, it gets a little easier. So they could string something together here.
Years, like, you've been around a long time. The highs are so high with this team, and the lows, like after that Edmonton loss, when people were ready to run Chris Jones right out of town. And then they beat Calgary, which Rob and I still don't know how we know how they did it, but we still didn't expect it.
And that resoundingly.
And they go into BC and they run to a big lead and they hang on to the win and they make... I was trying to think, of Rob, when's the last time some team had a 3rd and 1 stop to win a game? I can't remember the last time.
It was impressive, wasn't it?
It
caught me off guard, actually. I was just assuming they'll get the first.
Yeah, you go get a drink, overtime.
It's overtime. So I was... just stopped there. I go, oh my God, I can't believe they're going to win this game now.
And the way they did it by the defensive line, that power of the defensive line moving up for it, and Willie Jefferson sliding down, he was in the middle, and Ed Gainey, I guess, cleaning it up because they gave him credit for the tackle. But it was an all-round defensive play that we're going to remember. I think we look back last year when Ed Gainey had those 4 interceptions against BC as a turning point of the season. We're going to look back on that goal line. 3rd and 1. Goal line stand just sounds better, but I know we have to be realistic and let the facts interfere with what would be a great way to describe it. But we may look back on that single play as being, wow, this is the one that turned the Riders' season around.
I remember the second game under Chris Jones. The Riders had all sorts of trouble in 3rd and 1, and that pretty much decided the game when they couldn't make that yard. So now it evens out. Maybe it evens out when you look back to the East Division final last year. Cody Fajardo scored the winning touchdown on a 1-yard quarterback sneak. So the curse of Cody has been erased as of Saturday.
I still think it was the past Wilder that won that.
It was Cody.
I know it was Cody Fajardo. That's a good point. Did you got a memory on you? Eh?
See, I didn't know that until I read that in your column. I had no clue who that quarterback was in Toronto last year.
Neither did
you
most
did, though.
people in Toronto.
But I'm glad you brought that up. Because
good point. Rob has the memory of a.
But it made that stop even all the sweeter. But it took about a day after reading your column to recognize that. But nonetheless, it was kind of neat to read that. Okay, but there always things like that happen in the CFL a lot because it's a pretty small league, right? So
even when the Eskimos won the Grey Cup under Chris Jones and Jordan Lynch scored the winning touchdown. And people don't remember the backup quarterback who came in. They might remember Andrew Buckley in Calgary for what happened in the Grey Cup a year later when they brought him in the short yardage situation. So sometimes those guys don't get the credit or too much blame.
Hey, they're all great athletes. Even the ones who you don't hear a lot about. They are success stories in their own right. So They just don't get the publicity or the credit probably they deserve because they're not in the starting lineup, a lot of these players. But I'm still impressed. Anyone who can make any professional team in any sport is impressive, even if you're the backup. It's still impressive, I think.
If you look at the numbers, how many people are playing quarterback in professional football in North America?
Not
There's,
many.
There's about 100 in the NFL,
Yes.
and there's 25, 24 in the 27 in the CFL. So you're in a pretty high percentile once you
even
once
the
you do
guys
that.
impressive.
who play in the league, if you think of it, you look back, and most of them were captains of their high school football team. Most of them were the very best players. Like that Nick Marshall, who's come in to be just a star, was a stud in university, didn't get a chance in the NFL, and he's here lighting it up on defense, and he's kind of answered the short yardage woes. So that kind of, just the guys get here are usually the best of the best. The best of the best of the best are in the NFL. The third best are.
And then they return, and you read stories about some of these American players who return to their home communities and say they play for the Rough Riders, never played in the NFL, and they're heroes. They're almost like a hometown parade for some of these guys. Yep. They are highly regarded in their communities. So, even if you're a backup, it's still a pretty big deal, in my opinion.
There's been some calls in Winnipeg for the backup, Chris Strevler.
Yes, I hear. That's a good segue. And it happens, I mean, I don't know if those Mike Nichols comments about the fans booing were taken out of context or not, but it just seems like it's created a bit of a quarterback controversy in Winnipeg, which may bode well for the Rough Riders going into the Labor Day game. Who knows?
Yeah, what do you make of that, Murr? I mean, he was accused by some of throwing receivers under the bus.
I don't agree with
I
that.
didn't see that, but
maybe you don't want to interpret between the lines. That's what we do all the time. I think he was maybe crediting Calgary's defense with making him go to the fourth and fifth reads and taking him there, not the receivers getting open. I'm giving him the credit for that. I think he was a little too sensitive to be caught by the boos, and I think I saw someone TSN mention maybe 3,000 people were booing. 30,000 people there.
Sounds like me coming to work this morning.
Yeah, so it wasn't the great fans, but and it's funny, everyone's sort of slamming you for that. Isn't it great to have a quarterback comes out and actually tells you his feelings?
Isn't that refreshing?
What a difference. And I hate it when it happens. Whenever it happens, everyone jumps on the guy for for openness and telling you what he's really thinking, because we're always, and then when he does, you jump down his throat and say, you shouldn't do that, show some more maturity, be a better leader, be all these things. What's wrong with candor every now and again?
What gets me? There's some members of sports commentators, the media, that criticize football players for opening up like that. Like you're not being a team player, but you're in the media. Hello, this is exactly what we're looking for: people to speak the truth. Because let's face it, football teams are kind of a bit of a military-style operation where everyone sticks together and speaks as one. And so anytime anyone goes beyond those boundaries, it can create some issues. But as a consumer of football news, I love it when I read stuff like that. So.
Well, and sometimes we can't have it both ways. You criticize somebody for being outspoken. Look at LeBron James. He came out and said he's going to keep being outspoken regardless of whether there's consequences. But Matt Nichols was honest 2 weeks in a row about his sentiments, and people criticize him for that. But if he just towed the party line and given Tino Sinceri answers, people would have said, well, too many cliches. So I mean, it's so nice to hear somebody who actually speaks his mind. I think that's why we all appreciated Darian Durant around here, because Darian had things to say.
Yes.
And we still miss Darian.
And and he's talking about football and such. I think sometimes when the athletes get into other things, like in politics or social issues, I find some of that tiresome, to be honest, at times. But there are some incredibly perceptive athletes out there who are well-spoken. You think of, or for example, coaches, like the coach of the San Antonio Spurs, who speaks up on social issues. But it does get tiresome a little bit as well, because they do have this soapbox they can get on and say what they want that a lot of people don't. And sometimes I think it's just get back to sports. But on the other hand, it is refreshing to hear athletes speak beyond their comfort zone as well. So, I mean, it's just nice for people to speak their minds is the bottom line through all this.
How about so is Matt Nichols going to start on Labor Day? I'm just throwing that out there a little bit.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't they start?
I know,
Matt
why
Nichols?
wouldn't they? But, there's controversy, a little bit of quarterback controversy. There's no better city in the league than for controversy than Winnipeg, though, because they have two papers competing with each other, two acerbic colonists, and Wiesek and Paul Friesen, that just go at each other, and you just love reading the stuff leading up, because I think it's one of the toughest markets in the CFL to play in, because if you play well, you're a king, and if you even have a bad series, you're barbecued and grilled and stuff. And I just love reading the Winnipeg Free Press and the Winnipeg Sun stuff on them, which has nothing to do with anything but other than something. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because you know Roy Shivers very well, and Roy was somebody who
former GM of the Rough
former
Riders,
GM of the Rough Riders, and he would talk about a lot of things that had nothing to do with football,
Absolutely.
and a lot about society, and a lot about the way he grew up, and a lot about people's biases. And I always found that so refreshing. And there was a backlash against Roy from some people here or other because he spoke his mind. But
Yes.
it was great to have somebody here who just wanted to say what he felt. And at times he said what he felt about me, and it wasn't very flattering, but it was great that Roy would do that.
Well, he was one of a kind. I mean, I did a 1-hour documentary on his life. Went to Oakland where he grew up, and I still keep in touch occasionally. We've had a couple of breakfasts in Las Vegas whenever I've been down there. Well, down and out. So I go see him after losing at the tables. But nonetheless, he's the same. He has not changed. And so, when you think about Roy Shivers, but, he lived through that whole civil rights movement in a big way. And he was the first African-American to be general manager of a pro football team in North America. So... he broke some barriers, and he was very opinionated about what it took to break some of those barriers. So, yeah, those were interesting times in Riderland. And really, you talk about the Riders last year being one stop away from making the Grey Cup. The Riders under his regime were one missed field goal away from possibly going to the Grey Cup. So it happens.
Yeah, and even, that long pass or that 19-20-yard pass to Jason Claremont, if they make the play
In
on
the
that
West Final, yes.
in regular season or in the playoff game.
It's over, right?
And if Kenton Keith doesn't fumble on the 3. But.
There was a lot of drama in that West Final back then. But nonetheless, these things happen. Football seems such a cruel game, and it comes down to one game, and then it comes in that game to one or two plays. And then sometimes your whole career can be defined by just a few seconds on the field for all the years of effort it takes to become a pro player, and one fumble or one misplay in a key game in a key moment. And people will just remember you for that. It's not fair, but then you do get the glory on the flip side too. So that's how life is.
That takes us to Kerry Joseph in the Labor Day
Yes.
game, doesn't it? Like, Kerry got the Riders a great cup, absolutely, but what's he remembered for in your mind? Isn't that a draw?
That quarterback draw.
That's the one play. I remember we covered it and we broke it down as how it all happened and stuff. And Kerry Joseph, it's a little bit of a side here, but is he a Plaza of Honor nominee before that one season that he played that did so much for him?
There you go.
I think you have to put Kerry Joseph in there, and that's something I've lobbied for. I'm part of the selection committee, and they probably don't like me even talking about things that pertain to those meetings. But to me, how many times has a Rough Rider won most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League? Ron Lancaster twice, George Reed once, Kerry Joseph. End of list. And that's going back to Billy Vessels in 1953 or whenever the first one was. And how many quarterbacks have started for the Riders in a Grey Cup victory? 4.
This is 4.
That's right. And you look at the transformative nature of that 2007 season. It's if not for the 2007 season, there might not be a new stadium. I mean, that put everything in motion. So I think Kerry Joseph is probably one of the most impactful players in Rider history if you look at what he did and when he did it. And so he should be in
Now,
there.
speaking of the stadium, the new stadium, so what are your thoughts about the game coming up on Sunday?
Oh, there's a game on Sunday.
What? You don't like to interfere with our talk.
I feel so privileged I'm here. With
that's great to have you with us,
minds here.
You should be anchoring, though.
No.
I'm an imposter sitting beside Costa Maragos when he's not anchoring.
No. You never saw the ratings when I anchored the CBC News, did you? But nonetheless, I am curious as to what you think might transpire on. Because the weekend after in Winnipeg, the Riders do not, historically speaking, tend to lose that game. So let's just go, historically speaking, the Riders may be splitting that series, if history is any indication. But how do you think they'll do on Sunday?
I don't think you're too far off with the split. I really think they're 11-1 in their last 12 Labor Day games, and the last win was 2015, I think, for the Blue Bombers. Cut me on that one. I remember reading that last night. Geez, look at that. I'm dragging out stats.
No, actually,
the
Riders won on Labor Day weekend in 2015. That was Bob Dice's first win as a Rider head
so
coach.
it was the next year. So anyway, whatever. But
and they lost in 2016.
Yeah, I think a split is pretty reasonable, and I think they're going to. I'm going to go on a bit. I think they're going to win easily on Sunday. I think they're just playing at that level right now. Winnipeg's a little bit struggling, kind of wrestling with a whole lot of issues and stuff, and I think the Riders are riding high. I was in that locker room in BC, and it was an excited, happy place. And this was again some days off stuff, but I think I anticipate that, and I think going back to Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers are going to regroup and probably pull out a win there too.
They'd better win on Sunday, because if you're a championship caliber team and a team is on the ropes and teetering a bit, that's when you pounce and you stick a spike in them. And I think that's what the Rough Riders have to do. Now, it can change so much the following week, but it's changed so much over the last, here's a trendy word, fortnight.
My son plays Fortnite.
I still don't know what it is.
I have no idea, but I haven't seen him in 2 months.
He might have played it for a fortnight. You look back 2 weeks, and the Bombers are playing very good football, and the Rough Riders are on a 2-game winning streak. Sorry for my HEI. And suddenly, and the tenor of the dialogue in Regina or in Saskatchewan and in Winnipeg over the last 2 or 3 weeks has totally flipped. So who's to say that over the 2 weeks that ensue, it can't flip again, especially given the unpredictability of this entire season, not only in Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, but across the league. Who's to say that it doesn't, 2 weeks from now, we're not having an entirely different conversation, because it's had so many.
Does that make it more fun to cover that way, though? Like, I remember the fact when they won 8 in a row.
Sure beats 2015, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure beats 2015 when they won 8 in a row and something like that. And you're trying to find something to write about. And this one, you get every week. There's another controversy, like Joe Van Johnson didn't dress for BC. Oh, what's going on there? And you look, Claire, it's a quarterback controversy, offensive line. There's storylines everywhere. Which, as a member of the media guy, we cheer for the story. And as long as there's good stories to tell, we're.
And there was a Durant, not to bring up the Carter thing again, but even that as well.
We're trying to go every podcast to bring up Durant Carter. There you go. Thank you.
It was in danger of losing that streak there of not having a mention of Durant Carter.
We even invited him to be on it. Yeah, still waiting for the return on that one.
Yeah. Well, I hope they win. That's all I can say. Although bringing the Greek theme back into the discussion, I'm actually going to a Greek wedding on Sunday. So I won't be at the game, but I think that's a good thing, because generally when I don't go, the Riders win. So I just hope they pull it off.
Last Greek wedding I was at, it was mine.
Oh, is that right?
And you know what's weird?
How'd that work out for you?
Better for me than for Krasula. Yeah. The weird thing is, I never knew. There's no I pronounce you man and wife moment.
That's
right. I remember I put that.
There's no applause.
What's the thing that goes on your head?
Yes, the hat. Yes.
The hat. And I had to go around in circles
three times.
Sort of like this podcast, and I kept thinking the whole time, am I married yet? Am I married yet? And then it ended, and I guess I'm married.
I think the priest goes like this to you 3 times. You're married. No, get going.
That was it?
Yeah, something like that.
So it was the weirdest thing, because I kept thinking the whole time, I'm thinking, okay, is this the moment? Is this the moment? Is it going to be the seminal moment when, ta-da, I'm married?
It's a wonderful ceremony, though. It really is.
It was lovely.
It's a wonderful. But anyway, I just hope in my absence at Mosaic, because I love going to the games at Mosaic, that the Riders pull off a win and be talking about more victories down the road, which is always good for the city, I think. Costa, everyone talks about it.
What are you doing these days, by the way? I know you've got such an immense fan base in Saskatchewan.
I don't know about that.
Across the country.
It's been 5 years since I left my job at CBC Television, the anchor job. I can't believe where time flies. And then I was fortunate to get a position over at the University of Regina, doing some public relations for them. Loved it. Made lots of friends there. And I left that position in May, only because life is short. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I've done some travel. Working around the Rough Rider schedule when I'm taking time off to travel. And I'm doing a little more travel in the fall, and then I have to kind of figure out what to do with the rest of my life. But I am interested in doing some work, because those winters are pretty long here, and I really want to keep busy intellectually, just to be stimulated. And the great thing about the university job was I got to do a lot of writing and storytelling there. But hopefully I'll stay in the communications business, but I'll see in the fall, and figure things out. But
the fall starts Sunday,
I know.
So you better get going.
I better get going. On Monday, I'll have an answer.
This is where it gets really great, though. Not only as a football fan, but as a sports fan. As sad as it is to see summer wane, suddenly we're talking about September, and it's Labor Day weekend in the Canadian Football League, and college football starts this weekend in Canada and in the States.
Baseball's gearing up.
Yeah. Yankees are going to get the wild card. They might catch Boston. NFL coming up. What a smorg this is for people who love sports as much as we do.
It really is. And just maybe look back on the weekend that was in Regina, and we had the CP Women's Open there. And I know it's not football, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about that if we can. I was between the ropes for the last 3 holes with Brooke Henderson. And I was thinking, of all the years I've covered golf, there are more people at the Wascana than all of the golf events I've ever covered since around 1989. It was just an incredible series of moments, and every got bigger and bigger and bigger until finally she sank that putt on 18, and there was a bit of a craziness, and then they sang "O Canada" impromptu, and that was goosebumps country. Even teary-eyed a bit because they're going around like this is just people reacting to the moment. They haven't been told, like you've said on your column, make noise or do this stuff. They just decided to sing "O Canada" and raise in this young woman up there, and it was just such a spectacular day. The Wascana Country Club deserves kudos, everybody involved. And it was, I know you were watching on TV, it would have been cool to that, but it was so cool between the ropes. And I'm trying to think of a big events in Regina, the 2013 Grey Cup, the Memorial Cup with Briar, and then that's right up there with them.
I'm trying to think of non-rider big events in this city, and what happened this past weekend is certainly on the Mount Rushmore. Sandra Schmirler coming back from the Olympics and going right to the Scotties. There aren't many events that compare to what happened this past weekend. It was
actually not in a lot of cities. There are not a lot of events. Like when you go back, even Toronto, because of the Leafs, they haven't had anything big like that. But yeah, from a sports point of view, it doesn't happen that often, right? You go to a lot of cities. Before Cleveland won in the NBA, how many years had been since they had a victory parade? So it doesn't happen often. So, you embrace the moment, and obviously a lot of fans did at the Wascana, which is really nice to see.
Well, I know I was in Vancouver the night before covering the game, and I got back about noon. And I thought, well, I could go home and watch it on TV. And went, no way, I'm going to go watch this. I have the opportunity to go watch this in real life. And it was cold and rainy and kind of wasn't very summer-like, but it was just an experience. I'll always remember. I have a picture from it, and congratulations to Brooke, and especially the Wascana, and to Bernadette and Karen Pasterfield to put on, who did the co-chairing of that stuff. We were just a fantastic event. I think we're lucky to have it. We'll be back. Not my lifetime, but maybe in Rob's, maybe.
It was amazing. It was an amazing event.
Great. Well, it's a great idea to end on. I can't top that. And Costa, I can't thank you enough for being with us. It's been an honor to have you in our presence today.
No, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Rob. And Murray, keep up with the great food tour when you go on the road, because I love reading those posts on Twitter and Facebook from
I've kind of had to change my diet because my wife bussed me on that, and I've got to kind of find healthier food.
Do some veggie dishes or something like that.
Veggie dishes?
Yes.
Deep fried cauliflower?
Something like that. Yeah. That counts.
Go to the grocery store, take pictures of a bunch of cucumbers and post them. That's what you can go. Then you can go.
You have fans out there, I'll tell you that.
Okay, the football foodie, yes.
For Costa Marigos, thanks again. Murray McCormick, as always, it's a pleasure. And I'm just sitting in the middle. Thanks for being with us, and we'll do this again next week with JJ Voss and some music along with Rough Rider discussion. Take care.
Ooh, pressure's on.